Hopefully audio is working. All right, perfect. So yeah, this is I'm gonna actually lower my volume a little bit on my mic. I think it's a bit loud. This is a TAS I'm going to show today of Pokemon Fire Leaf Green Plus Diploma. This is the category where you catch all the Pokemon, the first 150 in the dex. RTA, it's at just under 5 hours. I'm comparing to my RTA splits here. Obviously for a TAS, you normally don't do this, but since this isn't going to be the final form of the TAS, I'm just going to do this now just for fun. But I'm going to do a final version. It'll be with a proper layout and it'll look really nice, but this is pretty good for now. And the reason why I did this TAS was I broke my ankle and sprained my knee 3 weeks ago. So I was like, well, I can't go outside and do anything, so I guess I'm inside and I'll do some tassing, which was I got into last year. This ended up being quite a fun project, although as you can see, it's definitely not perfect, and I definitely plan to make some improvements. But it was a good first attempt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the TAS. I'm going to compare it to my splits, and I'll try to add commentary as we go along here. And hope you all enjoy. So we'll get started. So yeah, for timing for TAS, it'll go right after the BIOS screen fades out. So that's when I will be starting my timer. Let's just make sure. Yeah, okay, good. All right. Okay, so starting a new game, you can switch the games throughout the run. You have to back out to the main menu to do so, or the starting screen. And I'll be doing that a few times during the run. We're gonna start on Fire Red. I'm not sure whether it's better to start on Leaf Green or Fire Red at this point, but this is what I decided to do for this run. Pick the girl. It's a couple frames slower. Default main because of instant text, which is going to be set up a little bit later. Right here exactly. So what we're doing is we're kind of enabling a bunch of the instant text, instant HP bars, and all that good stuff. For an RTA run, we would actually have all that set in advance. And the starting screen would actually go a little bit, the intro would go a little bit faster. But because this is a TAS, we start from power on with no old save file set up. But there's a bunch of really nice quality of life improvements in this hack, which make fights go a lot faster, it makes text go faster and everything. So that makes the run significantly more manageable to do in one sitting if you're playing at RTA. Picking Squirtle as the starter, we're going to be using it for the first part of the run, and then we're also going to immediately do a soft reset. The reason for that is we want to set up a couple of features which are only available in this key system settings menu, which are setting the mode to easy mode, which makes the trainers a little bit lower level, so they're a little bit easier, and also making experience doubled, which is obviously going to make the fights go much faster. So I didn't really spend too much time trying to find a perfect seed or a perfect Squirtle to work with. This Squirtle, and this fight obviously is not optimal. You can see right away I get 2 non-crits and 1 crit. You can definitely KO the Bulbasaur with 2 crits. So obviously that's not optimal, but changing that changes the entire rest of the run. So once I realized that, I was like, we're not gonna bother. In terms of the Squirtle itself, it's a rash nature with 28 IB special attack, which is more than enough for the run. And we do get 1 encounter. Probably if I really put my mind to it and maybe had a bot, I'd be able to find a seed which gets no encounters there, because we do not need any extra encounter experience. And obviously encounters are slow. There are going to be, I think, 4 extra encounters in the entire run. All the rest of the encounters that we get are going to be catches. It's just the way the RNG works. Before we get repels, we just can't avoid certain encounters. But in some cases, depending on what type of seed you get, you might be able to avoid them altogether in certain places. But yeah, the Squirtle is, other than the 28 special attack, it's kind of not great. It has very low speed, which isn't actually a problem for the run, just because you get so much extra experience. You're higher level, and the trainers are lower level than vanilla, so it ends up being quite a bit slower. It does actually tie the Bulbasaur in the rival fight that we just fought, and everything else is would speed everything. So we're gonna head up to, well, now that we have balls, we got balls from Professor Oak. We're gonna go ahead and start catching things. I'm actually should be using the tracker here, so I have Squirtle. And we have Pidgey, which we'll get here, and also Rat. This particular pass, I get 2 encounters, and I take advantage of that to make them different Pokemon, so I can catch both. As you'll see later, it might be better to try to force a 1 encounter pass here, because in Viridian Forest, I do something that's a tiny bit suboptimal. And that's obviously something, I'm going to be talking about that a lot. A lot of things that are suboptimal that could be improved. A great thing about catching on Route 1 also is we can skip the catch tutorial. And that grass patch I just ran through there, you risk 1% chance to get an encounter on each of those tiles. And so for TAS, we can easily just avoid that. Gonna skip some of the grass here because if we run through it all, we'll get way too many encounters. We don't have enough balls to catch everything we see. So for this TAS, I haven't fully timed things out perfectly, but I decided that based on the timing it takes to actually candy things, because we're going to be duplicating candies later on and evolving things, but because it's actually kind of slow to do that, and we're going to be getting encounters anyway in the forest, so we might as well catch these second stage bugs. So because we're on Fire Red, we get Metapod at level 5, and we get Kakuna at level 6, so we're going to need 9 candies between those 2 mons. We also can get Caterpie, Weedle, and Pikachu here, but we obviously only have 1 more ball left. So we're only going to get Weedle, which is right here. Or Caterpie, rather. We're going to get Weedle later. And there's a slightly better way to do this. You can get Metapod and Kakuna on Route 25, which is the route before Bill. And they only need 1 level to evolve, which saves quite a bit of time in terms of duplicating candies. And but they're much more rare, so it's much more difficult to get those encounters there. So for the Sandy fight here, the free shot, forcing String Shot here is probably suboptimal. We obviously don't take damage, but having Torrent actually is useful on the Brock fight. It saves a little bit of time. So it might be faster to get hit by the Weedle. Another option that you could do is catch the 2 low-level bugs, or the 2 first stage bugs, Caterpie and Weedle, and then also catch a Pikachu in the forest, and maybe force the Pikachu to hit you into Torrent with Thundershock. That's something that I might look into doing for the next version of the TAS. And you see 1 extra encounter. That's the second last optional encounter in the entire run. Right in the forest there, because we're going to be getting repels shortly after Brock. We're skipping Liam. The EXP is useless. We do this in RTA as well. We usually set up Torrent for this fight, so we one-shot the Geodude, and we have a good shot at one-shotting the Onix. But because we can TAS, we can just get crits on both the Geodude and the Onix to avoid taking damage. With Torrent, we would one-shot the bubble without, one-shot the Geodude without the crit, and then the Onix would be a 12 and 16 range. So there's a few things you can do. You can maybe even play around with, like, maybe entering the fight at really low HP, and then forcing a Rock Tomb miss out of the Onyx to maintain deep torrent for the rest of the Route 3 section, which isn't actually a big of a deal because you have a pretty good shot at one-shotting things. You have a pretty good shot at one-shotting things in Route 3 without torrent anyway, so not a big deal. We're gonna go shopping here. Spend all our money. So that happened really fast. So I got 10 Pokeballs. I also get 1 free Premier Ball because I bought 10. It actually ends up with that I end with 1 extra ball at the end of the run, so the Premier Ball actually was not needed, but that's okay. If I bought 9, I'd be short 1 ball, so that's a different story. I also bought 1 potion because I will need to heal, and that's, I believe, the only potion that I buy in the entire run. And this is because we're going to do a specific strat or path through to set up the mail glitch, which might be suboptimal. I have to do a little bit of timing and more of a deep dive on that, but we'll get to that when we get to that point. And then we're going to buy 6 repels for Mount Moon and Rock Tunnel. These 3 bugs are all ranges without torrent, so pretty easy to manipulate that with TAS. Now this is the very, very interesting thing. You have a choice of 2 trainers here. It was my understanding that you gain a little bit more experience from the bug catcher, and thus you get 1 extra level on Squirtle. And that would mean that you have to use less candies later to get it to Blastoise. However, this may not be true, and it may actually be fast optimal to fight the Lass. If you do indeed need 1 more candy, if you fight the Lass, it's 0.6 seconds slower. However, if it's the same amount of candies, then you save about 8 seconds or something like that. Timings, well, I did all these timings. Let me just pull those up here. So duplicating an item is about just under 3 seconds, and then using the candy, but not getting a move, is about 4.3 seconds. So it's about 7.3 seconds overall. And so 7.3 minus 0.6 is like 6.7 seconds. So it's about 6.7 seconds faster to fight Sally, assuming that it's the same number of candies. That's something I'll look into a little bit closer with the EXP yields later on. We make short work of that second bug catcher. We don't need torrent for those 2 fights. It's a pretty easy fight. Continue catching things here. Jigglypuff. Jigglypuff only spawns in this area, so we have to catch it. There are also a bunch of other things we can catch. Nidorans are less optimal to catch here because we can get them in Safari Zone, and Safari Zone encounters are faster because we don't send out our Pokemon. Mankey and Spearow and Pidgey also spawn here. We already have Pidgey, and we need a Spearow at a higher level later to do the mail glitch. Just the most optimal way to get the mail glitch set up. So we're going to not catch either of those, and that leaves us with Mankey. We could also just catch Mankey later as well. But we have to kind of run through the grass anyway, so. And the next area Mankey spawns, we actually don't run in as much grass, so it's optimal to save the Mankey encounter for now. Get the free Magikarp. It's the fastest catch in the game. And then we're going to party manage. We're going to pull Pidgey and Caterpie out of the party, bring in Jigglypuff. The reason for that is we want to make party space for our new main, which is going to be entering that 6th slot, and we might as well just grab the Jigglypuff so we can evolve it and get that taken care of right away. And Mankey's here. In RTA, we would probably use a lot more bag manips to get past spinners, but we're just going to do run to walks here. And obviously the repels are used in slightly different spots, so we can use that to avoid, use that little stutter step to avoid the trainer. Going to pick up the rare candy. That's the one rare candy we're going to pick up in the entire run, and that's going to be used as our dupe candy for later. Actually, we do pick up more candies. I lied. Some candies are just it's faster to pick up a candy than to duplicate one. And picked up a moonstone, and then we're going to catch a very special Clefairy here. So if you're familiar with Fire, Leaf, Green TASs, Clefairy is the optimal main because it gets Metronome. It can handle the Elite Four at pretty low level because you can just call any move you want using Metronome. And you'll see that I'm not evolving the Clefairy right away. So this is something this is what I was talking about earlier, where it might be optimal to. I don't know why I took an extra step there. That's really interesting. I took two extra steps effectively. I just realized that now. The reason for that is, well, actually we'll talk about this fight first. So we need crits on each of them, and we also need a regular hit right after. The potion is to heal off this damage we take from the Rattata, and future versions of the TAS will force tail it there, because then we won't need the potion at all. So that will be the strategy moving forward. But Rattata and Zubat are both faster. Picking up the extra Moonstone here. This is a pretty fast Moonstone. We need 4 in total for the run, so we don't have to duplicate any of them, because it is faster to pick up than to duplicate items, as long as they're not too far out of the way. This fight's going to just involve a lot of crits and misses. So pound, crit into pound. I don't remember what the range is, but it's not guaranteed on the Grimer. And then coughing requires 2 pound crits. And then the Voltorb coming up will require 1 pound crit. The Voltorb will outspeed, but we force it to use tackle, and that's faster than charge. Go. So the reason why we're not evolving Clefairy is we want Metronome, and possibly the fastest way to get Metronome is to, in theory, just wait till Clefairy learns it naturally at level 29. Clefable cannot learn any moves once you evolve it, and so you'd have to wait till getting to the tutor on Cinnabar Island in order to get Metronome. And that's something I'm going to look into for future versions of the TAS. The reason why that's important is because we're actually going to be using Metronome to call Recycle in the double battle to execute the nail glitch. And we're not going to be using Mr. Mime for that. Leveling up Mr. Mime is slow, and Mr. Mime's not a great battler, although maybe you could make it work in a TAS environment. I'm not actually sure. But it's a little bit out of your way to go get early before you get Fly. So that's the reason why we're not evolving Clefairy. Entering Misty's gym, we actually taught Mega Punch and Mega Kick. We're gonna need both of those. Their stab moves, very strong. Gonna be really useful for the run. And then we're on to Misty. So we force Harden here from Staryu. We can go for Water Pulse. We do not want that at all, because we do not want to take any more damage. Gonna Mega Punch crit. And then for Starmie, you crit twice with Mega Punch. You can't crit with Mega Kick and knock it out. But we're also doing a lot of move ordering here because we're teaching moves. We want to ideally teach moves into slot 1 because it's a little bit faster. As you can see, Starmie does a lot of damage to Clefairy, even though Clefairy has a very high special defense. I think it is 29 or 30 ID. Yeah, it does. But Clefable, obviously, with Clefable, we could probably one-shot the Starmie, and we probably absolutely would not have any issues with taking damage. So that's something that could be improved. Although, just going for tail, not getting any damage going into Misty would be preferable, because then we don't even need to heal in a battle. Hey, Spider. Welcome. This is my my injury passion project. Gonna teach Water Pulse here. That's just gonna be good for dealing with rock types, and just good a good decent move for PP management. We're gonna go party manage here. We're gonna use this to use this to make room for one party slot. We're also gonna box heal Clefairy to heal it, and get rid of Wigglytuff because we don't need it in the party anymore. We're keeping Metapod and Kakuna in the party because we can evolve them later. We don't need to box them and take them out later. Skipping the rare candy in Cerulean, again, we don't need... That's a very slow candy to get. It's definitely faster to duplicate a candy versus picking that one up. So this Clefairy is very special. You can see that this Clefairy outspeeds Pidgeotto, and you think that's... If you think about Clefairy's base speed, which is 40, that's pretty crazy. This Clefairy has a hasty nature, which means it has plus speed, and it has 30 IV, which is really good. It actually outspeeds the Rattata as well. The only thing that it outspeeds it from here pretty much is this Abra, which doesn't do any damage anyway. The Clefairy's IVs are 16 HP, 24 attack, 8 defense, so it's kind of weak on the defense side, but its TAS, we can make it work. 26 special attack, which is very good. 29 special defense and 30 speed, again on a hasty nature. Very lucky to find this thing without... or find this thing manually. Because of that, I'm kind of reluctant to redo the early game prior to getting Clefairy, because I might not be able to find this Clefairy again, and I might end up with something suboptimal. These bugs are all one-shots, nothing special to do here. All we're really doing here is just trying to avoid crits. So sometimes the first available frame to use the move results in a crit, and that's kind of annoying, but you have to just lose a little bit to that, but... Fairy is going to have a pretty easy time heading through this next section here. So Pulse on Pidgey is guaranteed. And then we punch the two grass types. Oh yeah, this is definitely a very unexciting point in the run. The next trainer we're going to use Mega Kick on the Sandshrew, and I believe it's just a little bit better than a 50-50. Also, yeah, I did some timings as well in terms of determining how long it takes to get a critical hit, how long it takes to get super effective text box. I'm trying to find where I wrote this down. My notes are extremely disorganized. Crit text is 66 frames, so it's just over a second, and then I think super effective text is about the same. So we need to try to avoid getting either of those unless we absolutely need to. Sometimes PP management just dictates that we're going to need to use a super effective move, just because that's the only option available. We are faster than this Mankey as well. 28. We need 28 speed on a plus nature to outspeed it, which is really, really solid. And yeah, these fights are not very interesting. Yeah, it's just all Mega Punch, I believe, across the board. At least that's what my notes say. I may have actually switched to using something else, but... I don't believe I split until Bill on these splits, so I will do that. Now we're going to go into Route 25, we're going to come up here and we're going to catch a couple things. We're going to catch an Abra, because Teleport is a really nice ability to have. could catch 2 Abbers here because we need to evolve one and trade one for Mr. Mime, but I opt to buy one at the second one at the game corner. Because the game corner buy is very fast. And then we're going to catch that last bug, which is Weedle. As I mentioned before, if we catch Weedle, Caterpie in the forest, as well as Pikachu, then we can come up here, we can get Metapod and Kakuna, but Metapod is a 1% encounter, and Kakuna is a 4% encounter on Route 25, so that's probably going to be harder to find, but it would save a lot of time in candy duplications later. Anything of interest coming up here? Not really. We'll see how I do this Dan pass here. This is a fun pass to do in Fireleaf Green. Okay, I don't do the... a previous pass through this area, I did the more typical fast movement that you do for RTA, but in this case, I just got him to turn the other way and avoid the encounter altogether. We're also avoiding a lot of poison points here on the Nidorans. This fight's obviously the best option. He has 2 less Mons, and that's just it. And the 3 of the Mons on the Hiker are going to be Water Pulses, which is going to be super effective text. So that's a second time loss for each one. So it absolutely makes sense to go for the Camper instead. We're going to pick up that Oranberry. That'll be a key ingredient for the Mail Glitch later. Probably the fastest berry you can get that's useful for the glitch. And then we're going to just Mega Punch everything here. Don't remember if I pound the Pidgey. I believe that is an option. Nope, I just punch this as well. So Clefairy is level 27, which means we are 2 levels away from getting Metronome. Oh no, we're behind PB. I think I split when Bill popped out of the teleporter. But we have, I don't know what my catch count is in my RTA run, but it's definitely not 14. It's way lower than that. So we're going to teleport back to Cerulean, which saves quite a bit of time. I don't remember exactly how much, but a decent amount. We do have to run around to get to the Dig Rocket, though, unfortunately. Mega Punch on both of these guys. Mega Punch PP is looking kind of low, as you can tell. But not a problem. Into the underground path. Now, this is an extremely riveting part of the run. I don't know if I pick up the rare candy here. I don't believe I do. No. I will time that to see if it's worth it. Again, picking up a candy, or duplicating a candy, duplicating an item is about 3 seconds of time. So if the candy pickup is less than that, it's worth it to grab it. I don't believe that candy is worth it, though. It's definitely more than 3 seconds. It has to be like only 3 or 4 steps off the path to be worth it to grab. And I swapped Mega Kick to slot 1 because I'm actually going to be getting rid of Mega Kick shortly. That's something which I'm still toying with as a possibility for maybe, and that's going to be if we decide to go with the Clefable, evolving Clefable early, we'll be able to keep Mega Kick longer, which might actually make some fights faster. But for the time being, we're going to be doing that. Oh wait, boat rival. Gonna Mega Kick the Pidgeotto. We outspeed everything here except for the Kadabra. So I lied. Actually, the Kadabra is faster in this fight. Mega Punch the Raticate, and we actually I think ran out of kicks. Yeah, so we're gonna get Metronome there, teach it into slot 1, which is faster than scrolling. And now we can finally evolve our Clefairy. Take a little bit of damage there from Kadabra. And then unfortunately we have to crit the Ivysaur. Mega Kick would KO, but we don't have Mega Kick anymore, so we have to get a crit there. And Metronome is significantly slower than anything. You only ever use Metronome if nothing else kills, and that won't be the case until much, much later. So now we are going to do a menu. Actually, I believe we go to the PC here and do some party management again. Yeah, we definitely do, because we have to make party space again for another Mon we're going to catch. And I do box the Clefairy as well. Get rid of the Rattata. We're keeping the bugs in the party because we can evolve them later. And that restores Clefairy's PP, which I think Mega Kick PP was pretty low, so that's helpful. Hey, Daniel. Welcome in. Before we go do Surge, I'm going to actually head over to Route 11. I'm going to catch a couple things there. This is something that's not done in RTA. And we're going to catch a Spearow. So Spearow comes at 13, 15, and 17 here. We want the level 17. This Spearow is going to be traded for Farfetch'd, and Farfetch'd is one of the key mons we're going to need to set up the mill glitch. The reason why we don't do the level 21 or 22 Spearow west of Celadon is because you'd have to go back to Vermilion to do the trade, which is slower. I believe it's slower. It should be slower. I'll also take this opportunity to catch a Drowsy. Now, this is incorrect, what I'm doing here. I should be catching an Ekans. The reason why is because Ekans spawns just before Victory Road, and there's not much grass there, so we actually have to camp for the Ekans later on. But Drowsy spawns in Berry Forest on Sevi Islands, and there's lots of grass to go through there, and so there's enough room to squeeze in one more encounter in that area. So that's something I'll do next time when I redo this TAS. I'm not marking anything here. I'm losing track. This is Spearow. Farfetch'd, where are you? And we got Drowsy as well. But, so the thing is now we have only a level 17 Farfetch'd. We need to get to level 21, but I've got a good solution for that. We'll get to that a little bit later. We're going to use our final Moonstone in the bag to evolve Clefairy. And so now we get a significant boost in stats. So Clefable has 70 attack and 85 special attack and 60 speed. So it's still not super fast, but because we're so over leveled, we outspeed most of the things in the run. There's, I think, like 3 things that outspeed the rest of the way. Gonna teach Cut to Chideng. And also teach Dig to Wartortle. I'm not sure. I think in RTA it is optimal to use escape ropes, but we use Dig. We escape rope. We would need so many escape ropes that it's. I just decided to go with Dig. Money is kind of tight. I mean, I made it tight because TAS, you can make it as tight as you want. And then we're going to go into Surge's Gym, and I found a pretty fast can setup here. That wasn't too bad. So by timing the frame which you enter the gym, you can actually set up the cans to do whatever you want, so that's really nice. And then Surge is a very, very easy fight with Fable. So Water Pulse is 3 and 16 range. We're gonna, I think, still use Water Pulse here for Pikachu, so that way we don't have to worry about dealing with static. And then Raichu, we can do Pound Crit, or we can go for Mega Punch or Mega Kick without the crit, so it makes sense just to go for Mega Punch and avoid static on that one as well. And of course we outspeed because we're really fast and higher level. Oh, I forgot to split. Splits aren't going to matter, I'm not going to be saving them. Okay, so you'll see what I did here is I swapped Chiding to the top, and I also used Teleport to go back to Solid Cerulean, so I don't have to worry again about biking or running back. We're going to go grab the Bicycle. And the Bicycle in this game has 2 speeds, and the second speed is extremely fast, so it has some pretty nice effects on it. Dismounted the bike before the fight to set up Spinner Pass later. To force the Spinner to go a specific direction. And now we're actually going to use Chiding for a few fights to get it to level 21 where it learns Knockoff. So we're going to be using Peck. We need to crit both the Oddishes. These Oddishes are probably the only reason why, although maybe the Venonat is a crit as well. You wouldn't do this for RTA for this reason. It's just, you'd have... These fights are just too slow. And so fighting the 2 mandatory trainers on Route 9 gets Chiding to level 20, just over 21, I think. Actually, I think it gets it to level 22, but... Nice little trainer skip set, or trainer pass set up there. And so this fight will get me to learning Knockoff. I also did a move swap there because I believe I'm making room for Knockoff. Yeah, it'll be level 21 and a little bit over that. So now we have most of our ingredients for the male glitch. All we need is male. That's the only thing left. We also need to crit the Venonat as well. Okay, that's what I thought. There's nothing to catch in the grass there that's worth, so we just ignore that area. Gonna use Repel. Again, and everything in here in Rock Tunnel we don't need. We can just catch later at a higher level. Like, the levels don't matter, I guess, because we're gonna be we mostly catch evolutions anyway. So it's just not worth it to get anything here. Slowpoke, if I had Mega Kick, I would use that, and it wouldn't need a crit, but unfortunately I do need to crit with Mega Punch. Same thing for the second Slowpoke here. Nugget Bridge is kind of very similar to Rock Tunnel in that the fights are not very interesting, as you would expect, given we're pretty over-leveled and have a good moveset. But yeah, there's going to be a lot more interesting stuff coming up later. A lot of the catching sections are going to be a lot more fun to see, but this is... The bike movement's pretty cool, because no bonks or anything like that, but... Gonna use pound here for PvP management reasons. We do need to save water pulses and mega punches, although I think it's not as tight as it looks. And we ideally try to, in terms of PvP management, we ideally try to stay on the same move. Switching between moves loses a few frames. I think it's actually a frame, not that bad. We're 2 frames. That trainer, there's a spinner, so we can just... I think he just defaults to... Actually, maybe he defaults down and he had turned left there, so... Didn't have to worry about setting that up too much because it was already that way when I got there. A little more PP management with pound. Okay, so coming out of Rock Tunnel, we're going to fight this girl instead. She is a faster fight. The other fight leads a Growlithe with Intimidate. The Clefairies like to follow me a lot, but I just set everything up so that they don't. So, pretty easy double Mega Punch. Alright, Celadon. We're going to head up here, and we're going to grab our Eevee. The Eevee is going to be a Mon, one of 2 Mons we're going to be using for breeding later, because we need multiple Eevees. And unlike the other Mon we're going to be breeding for, stats and IVs don't, or IVs and nature, I don't know what actually dictates what the egg's nature is, and stats are, but that's going to be important for the other Mon. We don't have to worry about that for Eevee. And then we're going to go straight into the game corner. In RTA, we would actually grab the coin case and pick up a bunch of coins and buy Abra here. And use it right and do a few things with a few teleports with it, but we're gonna just get the Abra later with bot coins. So this area, Rocket Hideout, is probably the only area I pick up a ton of items. I'm gonna pick up the PP up because I do need to buy quite a bit of stuff, and it's optimal to pick up the items and sell them versus duplicate things. So we're going to grab the nugget here. You also hear that I'm bonking off a lot of things if I'm not on the bike. If you bonk and then immediately start moving in a different direction, you can get moving a bit quicker. So I take advantage of that quite a bit. I picked up that rare candy. It is actually a very fast rare candy to pick up, so it's absolutely worth it. That's a forced moonstone. We're going to need it anyway, so it's a very useful item. And then one more item we're going to pick up down here, which is the calcium. Unfortunately, we have to water pulse the Sand Slash. I think Mega Punch crit kills, and so it takes the same amount of time. So you might as well just go for water pulse because water pulse is 100% accurate. You don't have to worry about trying to work around misses. And the Ekans is a 7 and 16 range with pound. It's a nice little use of PP management there. I think I do the same thing on this one. Nope, I pulse this one. The reason that is I have to pulse the Sandshrew, and I'd have to do a couple extra inputs, which is like 4 extra frames overall, so it's faster to just go pulse, and then the Arbok, we have to crit it with pulse or Mega Punch, and I believe I punch this one. That will not be the last Arbok we Mega Punch crit in the run. Geo is a pretty straightforward fight here. We're just going to pulse his 2 rock types, and then we get a Mega Punch crit on Kanga. If I had Mega Kick, I would be able to knock that out with Mega Kick with no critical. Gonna dig on out. Next up is going to the gym, but we're gonna quickly pop in here and grab our coin case. It is faster just to grab it after Geo versus before. Again, in RTA, we just go get the coins. We get the coins in hideout, so it makes sense to grab the coin case first. Shoutouts to the offset door for Celadon Gym. Normally in vanilla you would do this gym later because, although maybe in the TAS you do it right after Giovanni, but because we're so over-leveled, this gym is very doable at our current level. Okay. Erica time. So we have to punch all 3. We need crits on Victory Bell and Vileplume. Kind of funny, when I was roading this, I initially thought Mega Punch had 85 power, and it actually has 80, so it was... When I calculated this Victory Bell, it was 5 and 16 at 85 power, and I'm like, why is I not able to find a frame that kills without a crit? And now I know why, because I discovered that much later. It's not a huge difference, but it's enough that it matters in some cases. Alright, so Erica down. I love the movement, it's so cool. Picking up the T. And then shopping. The shopping here is really, really cool. It's super, super fast. It is faster to take the stairs here. I did confirm that. I don't remember how much faster. Must have. I probably wrote this down. Thank you, Spider. Teamwork. To ban the bot. If you were counting, I bought 3 sets of 99 retro mail, 3 fire stones, 2 thunder stones, 4 water stones, and 3 leaf stones. Buying stones is faster than duplicating them, and I'm buying significantly less mail than I do for RTA. Usually I buy 5 sets of mail in RTA, but I can make do with 3 here. Alright, so now we are going to set up the mail glitch. Actually, no, I lied. We're going to do it after tower. Initially, I was actually setting up the mail glitch on the cool couple here, or young couple. I don't remember what their trainer class is. But I'm going to at least do the menu to set up the glitch now. Keep Clefable obviously in slot 1 because we have a few more battles left. Move Farfetch to slot 2. Put the Warrenberry on Wartortle because that's going to be the mon that we're going to force the Warrenberry to proc on. Put the mail on Clefable because Clefable is our metronomer, or our recycler. And yeah, that's kind of it for that menu. So initially I would so the first time I tried this TAS, I would do the double battle glitch on that cool couple. Oh, I forgot to split for Geo. Whoops. And for Erica. Whoops. And this split doesn't mean anything because we're doing the double battle after tower. But anyway, I would do the dupe there, or set up the mail glitch there. I would do a bunch of my dupes right there, and then I would actually candy Clefable right away. And these fights would be a tiny bit faster. Like I wouldn't need to crit the Ivysaur and the Gyarados, for example. But I found that it's actually a little bit faster to do the mail glitch later. Even though we're going to be leveling up more, and we're going to be getting like gained experience, and then the level ups as well, of course. We have less candies to dupe later, so that ends up being optimal. All right, we're going to catch 3 Mons in here. I don't remember if I missed any catches in the last little while. No, I think that's... yeah, no, I didn't buy anything at the game corner. And we are going to catch all 3 different unique Mons in here, including Haunter. Haunter's a bit tricky to catch. Pretty much most of the things in this run we're going to be using Pokeballs and Great Balls to catch, and Premier Balls. But I will be duplicating the Master Ball a couple times. Because the legendaries, I was like, nope, I'm just going to do Master Balls on you, because they have the worst catch rate. So in Pewter, when I bought 10 Pokeballs, that ends up being very important because that gives me enough balls to last me through to Safari Zone. Safari Zone, we don't use regular balls, we use Safari Balls. And then after we do the dupes, we can then go buy Great Balls later. So this works out really well. These fights are not terribly exciting. Just simple water pulses. We do have one more thing to catch here. I think I do have to force the encounter, if I recall correctly. Okay, I get it on the very top floor. So this Marowak is probably the only opponent you fight in the run that has the same stats as Vanilla. So I do need to crit with Mega Punch. Or use Water Pulse. Actually, Water Pulse I don't even think kills. And as you would expect for Tower, encounter rate is very low. And I force the Cubone. And so going back to like candying, so what I would actually do is I would candy. I didn't really tell the whole story. So if I did the double battle earlier, I would, instead of the middle glitch, I would actually reset the game and turn EXP gain off. And that saves time because you don't gain experience, you don't level up. But if you do that, you have to dupe more candies. And so what I determined is if I do the dupes in Sylph, which is what I end up doing in this run, I actually end up saving 5.6 seconds. Assuming that I'm waiting the same amount of time for all the hits to avoid crits, or if I want to go for a range or something, assuming everything balances out. So in theory, it's faster. When I do the final version of this task, I'll actually do a nice, use a Lua to actually add commentary, like written commentary on screen that you could read. So it's a little more informative and has all the details. That'll be a little bit more of an interesting watch than hearing me speak and get things wrong. And so how much time does... Let's split here. Look at that time save. Actually, that time save is kind of deceptive because I'm not doing any dupes. Alright, this double battle is amazing. It's a work of art. Hope you enjoy. So Claypole's on the top. It's actually slower to swap Wartortle at the top, so I'm just going to use turn 1 to switch Wartortle in. Chiding is going to cut Wartortle. And then Jigglypuff is going to knock Wartortle into Oran proc range. Then turn 2, I switch out Wartortle back to Clefable, use knockoff on the Wartortle slot, which knocks off the Retro Mail. Force a Sing Miss. Rollout hitting is whatever. Then I Metronome Recycle. Find the Oranberry. That was actually surprisingly quick to find. Then I use Fly with Chiding. Reason for that is I'm going to Metronome a Swift, which I think might have hit Chiding. I'm not sure. No, I don't think it does, but I Metronome a move that hits both of the opponents and knocks them both out. Which is very, very nice. So Surf works as well. Actually, I think Surf might even be a range somehow on that. I don't know how, but Earthquake also is an option. Muddy Water, I think, is also the same as Surf. So that truly is a beautiful thing. And we're not going to need Metronome for a while from here. Moving on straight to Sylph. Gonna go grab the card key. So in terms of gain, when I turn off the EXP gain, it saves about 0.5 seconds per thing you knock out, and then if you level up, it saves another 4 seconds. And so duping and using a candy is about 8 seconds. So overall, it comes out to about 6 seconds if you take into account that I'm gonna be taking Clefable up to level 65. That'll be its final level. So it worked out. It works out that way. So because I'm not level 65, I have to get a lot of crits on this fight. If I had Mega Kick, I'd be able to avoid at least. I'd probably only be able to avoid the Pidgeot critting actually. I'd have to crit everything else. Crits are nice because they ignore the attack drop, so from Intimidate, so I can deal with that pretty easily. Water Pulse Growlithe. It's about the same amount of time, and I think it was helpful for PP management. Oh, another important thing to point out is I also biked to Sylph from Lavender via the double battle. And that's faster than flying to Celadon and then entering Saffron the other way because the bike is so fast. That's another nice little optimization. I would even do that when I did the other double battle. After doing Tower, I would bike from Lavender all the way to Saffron, and it's faster than flying to Celadon and then exiting east. Marowak's another example of a mon which I thought I could get a range with Mega Punch, but turns out Mega Punch is actually 80 power and not 85, so I have to Water Pulse it. Drowsy is a range as well with Pound. Alright, Giovanni 2. Punch is a range. Punch crit is a range on Nidoqueen. Probably not a great range, considering I had to wait a while for that frame. I have to crit Kanga. And then Mega Pulse, Water Pulse, the Rhyhorn. Alright, now we can finally do duplicating items. Unfortunately, this is one of the least exciting parts of the run. So if you want to take a break, now is the time. We're going to be doing a lot of duplicating here. So the way it works is the glitch state is already set up, so what I have to do is equip Mail on the remaining 5 Mons in my party. The game still thinks there's a Mail on Clefable. And so if I try to give a Mail to Clefable, it duplicates the item that Clefable's holding. So there's 3 items I'm going to duplicate here. So first I put the Master Ball on, I duplicate the Master Ball 3 times, because I'll be catching 4 legendary Pokemon. I'll then be duplicating Nuggets. There will be 48 Nugget dupes. And then I will be duplicating for candies. I will be duplicating the candies 217 times. I pick up a few extra candies in the run, and we'll see much later in the run that I actually don't duplicate enough candies. I actually needed 5 more. But you'll see my mail when I'm done will be 4 mail. So I have a way to work around that. I'm actually going to avoid candying the Abra and just catch a Kadabra in Cerulean Cave, which means I save 5 candies. So that will balance itself out super nicely. But yeah, if you want to take a break, I will go silent for a little bit because there's not really much to talk about here, other than I hope you enjoyed the glitch, the glitched screen there. When I drop the mail on Clefable, that only happens if you like frame perfectly confirm the mail give. Sometimes I can trigger that glitch screen playing it RTA, but not every time. Although I may have been using actually I think I was using a turbo controller, so that would explain why. Because even though turbo controllers aren't going to be frame perfect, they're going to be pretty close to it. But really what we're doing is we're catching as many Evos as we can to avoid duplicating more candies. Because using a candy, duplicating a candy, using a candy, and then Pokemon declining moves and then Pokemon evolving is actually, I believe, slower than just catching the evolution. So this run is almost a minimum evolutions run. It's actually not, unfortunately. I do end up, as I said, I don't catch Kadabra. So it's not a Mini-Evos run, sadly. But other than that, it is. But yeah, all these candies we're going to be using for evolutions, other than we're going to get using 15 of them on Clefable. I initially chose 65. I was like, this looks like a good number to use, and ended up working out really well. Going to 68 might be a little bit optimal, but this is what I ended up doing. But anyway, that's enough blabbing. There'll be lots to talk about later. I'm going to step aside for a little bit and let things duplicate. And I will be back shortly. Okay. Getting to the end. So this might look really slow, but this is like the bare minimum candies that you need, because a lot of stuff you just can't catch. Like the Evos to fossils, the Evos to the other starters, Rhydon, Dragonite, that sort of thing. I guess you can catch Dragonair, but it comes at a level about the same as their Dratini anyway, so it's not great. So in terms of just like, if you want to think about it, like how long it takes to actually evolve stuff versus catch, I calculated that if you use one candy and evolve a Pokemon, say for example, like Geodude, we'll catch it at a higher level later. Actually, we technically catch Graveler in this run, but like maybe like Machop, for example. We catch Machop at a pretty high level. And you could evolve it in one candy. That takes about 30 seconds to do. But if you catch a Machoke, that takes about 22.5 seconds. And so that's only for one candy. So, the more candies you do, you just lose even more time. So it's absolutely worth it to always catch the evolution. And if in case you're wondering, I didn't painstakingly put all the inputs in for all those dupes. What I ended up doing, there's a really nice tool that I discovered when I was working on this task, because it became very relevant for this one, because there's a lot of repetition, especially also for the candies as well. Is you can clone groups of frames, so I ended up just cloning the male equip like 200 times. And there are lag frames that show up, which means I have to make small adjustments here and there, but it saves so much time just to use that feature in the TAS Studio software. Same thing with the candies here. So again, we're bringing Clefable up to 65. And we're going to be... evolving everything else in the party as well. That can evolve. You saw there that I have to take into account canceling moves as well. Fun fact that I realized in doing this task is that if a Pokemon has a full moveset, it is actually faster to decline a move than it is to teach a move into an empty slot. Because there's a lot of lag in the... There's a lot of lag in the when you teach the move. Because when you're writing over a move, it says, it's trying to learn this, and there's a really quick text box that you can clear right away, so it ends up becoming pretty irrelevant. It ends up being about half a second faster, maybe a quarter of a second. I didn't actually calculate that, but that was a fun fact that I noticed as I was... Turn off music. We will shortly be at the end of this extremely tedious part of the run. There is actually one more pretty tedious section of the run. That's going to come in about in about an hour and 40 minutes or so. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So all that hard work of keeping our bugs in the party this whole time is paying off. We can evolve them. So even if you take into account the evolution itself, now Beedrill's evolution is going to be a bit slower because it has to learn a move, but candying something and evolving it, or the evolution just on its own, is like 25 seconds. Which is pretty slow. There's Kadabra. Unfortunately, in the people who created this task or this hack didn't make evolutions faster. If they did, maybe it would be worth it to candy more things. All right, we're nearly done. Just have Butterfree to do here. We actually have one more evolution after this, because we actually got an item from the rival after we beat him in Sylph. He gives you the Link Bracelet, which allows you, it's pretty much a reusable key item, which you can use to evolve Pokemon that would otherwise be trade evolutions. So Haunter, Graveler, Machoke, and Haunter are going to be evolved using that item. Okay, that was pretty nice little quick menu. So it's if you actually move an item and scroll, it's a little bit faster than if you scroll. It depends. If you scroll a lot of slots, it's faster to select and move an item down, and then move it back up versus scrolling down normally and then having to scroll back up later. However, I learned later. Actually, this only applies for like the TM case, but you can actually scroll quickly using L and R, but you can't do that with the thing. Okay, so saving a soft reset here. We're using this to do a couple things. Switching the game to Leaf Green, and then we're also setting the EXP to 0. Removing the candy from Fable and digging out. We could have also removed the mail from the other mons because we're not doing any more dupes, but do that later, I guess. So we're going to sell all 51 nuggets that we own. I don't remember how many of everything I bought. I had to modify a little bit because I actually ran out of money due to an oversight. So I actually had to go fix that up again. But I'm buying about 19 Max Repels and about 60 Great Balls. Actually, I think it's like 56 Great Balls, and then we get 5 Premier Balls. We do need to catch 61 things from here that aren't legendaries and aren't Safari Zone mons. Okay, so you can see there, no experience gained is obviously a lot faster. And we can easily one-shot a lot of things here. For PB management, I have to crit the Venomoth. I think there's a way to avoid that. I have to double check, though. This is a very interesting PB management section of the run. And then Alakazam is actually a range with Pound. But I want to be using as many Pound PP as I can because there's 35 of them. Alright, next up is the Dojo. So for Dojo, you just need to fight one trainer in each row of tiles. So I do bottom left and top right because there's 3 mons in total. It's the fastest combo. I actually don't believe you can fight both left trainers. I think the right trainer has more vision or something, or maybe it is just because they have less mons. I don't remember. I think that's the case. So these are nice, good Pound targets because they're pretty weak. And then it is the Dojo Master. Pound on Hitmonlee, and Mega Punch on Hitmonchan. Hitmonchan's a bit bulkier, we can't use Pound. And then we pick our fighter, our fighting Mon, which is Hitmonchan. Now, one thing I didn't do is I didn't check the Hitmonchan's stats and IV. It's IV in its nature. I'm not 100% sure, but I think there is some sort of transferred IV or nature from parents to baby. And we are trying to, we're going to be breeding a Tyrogue, which is not one of the original 150 Mons. But we need to evolve that into Hitmonlee, and the attack stat needs to be higher. And I had to do I had to play around with it a little bit to get a good Tyrogue. So you'll see right away why I switched to Leaf Green. Could have started on Leaf Green, but it wouldn't make that much of a difference. I buy a much cheaper Porygon. It's 6,500 coins. The Dratini is a little more expensive because it's a higher level, but it's less candies for later. And overall, it saves time. We're also going to grab the Abra. I should be marking these guys. And Porygon. That doesn't mean I have to go back into the game corner and buy the Mons again, but it's okay. It's much, much faster to do that. And yes, we're going to catch Snorlax with a Pokeball. Let's go. Fun fact, I think when I was routing this, I obviously do have Great Balls. I did get it faster in a Pokeball versus a Great Ball. Funny how that works, but that's what happened. Gonna pick up this for a candy. It's worth it because it's pretty quick. And grab the Max Elixir from the side for swag. We do need one PP item for later, but we'll talk about it later. There is a way I can change the route, which I can avoid getting it all together. All right, Safari Zone, everybody's favorite. It's a very, very good Safari Zone, obviously, because it's TAS. There are a lot of things we're going to catch here. So in the entrance area here, we're going to catch 4 Pokemon. Some Pokemon you can catch in multiple areas, but I'm trying to minimize the amount of turn framing that I do. Pinsir is a Leaf Green exclusive. Catch that. So this split is where we're going to really save a ton of time over RTA for obvious reasons. Because in RTA, what we would do for like Pinsir and Chansey is we would throw bait to improve the odds of the Mon sticking around, but that also decreases their catch rate. It's a weird balancing act you have to do. Now, one oversight that I did have in the run is I thought you could save and quit in the Safari Zone. Save, soft reset, because there is one Fire Red exclusive Mon, which is Scyther. Unfortunately, you cannot do that, and so my routing was set up so that I didn't have enough money to go back into the Safari Zone. You'll see when I entered the Safari Zone, I had about 600 bucks left. So I had to modify my shopping to buy one less Max Repel or one less Great Ball, I think. And so that was a small thing I had to change when I was already halfway through the Safari Zone. I'm like, oh no. This is so slow. I have to do this all over again. But it was worth it. That's a very interesting thing. Nice little turn frame encounter. Those are actually really nice in here because you don't have to take any steps. Fun fact, the Chansey in the first area was a 1% encounter, so Chansey actually spawns in the last area at 4%, but I just got it pretty quickly. And this is a Kangaskhan. Easiest Kanga catch you'll ever see. All right, this is the final area. We're actually going to be re-entering to catch stuff later, catch Scyther and a couple other things. But in this area, we're going to catch 5 things. One of them being Paris. Rhyhorn. We want to catch Rhyhorn here. Rhyhorn spawns in the entrance area, but it's 1 level lower, so that's 1 extra candy. So it's worth it to get it now. Female. So the female Nidos are a little more common in Leaf Green over Fire Red. So what we're actually going to end up doing is when we switch back to Fire Red. Before re-entering the Safari Zone, we're going to get the two male Nidorans. Venomoth. Where are you, Venomoth? I think there's one more thing to catch. That's the 1% Tauros. So Tauros spawns in Area 3, but Area 3 is kind of slow to get to. So it's worth it just to get Tauros here. To keep our path through Safari Zone as linear as possible. I'm not sure why there was a big pause there. I don't think that was supposed to happen. Whoops. Grab the gold teeth, grab Surf. Retire. And then we'll save and quit. So this one only is to change the game back to Fire Red. Oh, I should probably split. Okay. Nidorino. Scyther. One more thing, and then we're done with Safari. If you blinked too long, you might have missed everything. We'll just mark Nidoran male, because that's the next thing. So now what we're going to do is remove the male. We could have done this earlier, but we have to fly anyway, so probably doesn't matter too much. And off to... Actually, no, we're going in the center. I lied. Can't remember why I'm doing this. Right, we're going to grab the other Abra and box a few things. We're going to keep Wartortle or Blastoise in the party because it's going to get Strength... Or no, it's going to get Surf later. And obviously keep Farfetch'd in the party because it gets Fly. And Abra will be used. We need to trade it later, and we might as well. I will split Koga after here. And I think we use that Abra to teleport once as well, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. But yeah, I saved 8 minutes on that Safari Round 1 visit, and that Safari Round 1 visit, I only go through the area and catch whatever I see. until I run out of balls or get chancy. So considering I caught so much stuff, that's just a huge time save. Obviously, TAS is able to do that, but... Alright, Koga. We are still going to need to get some crits here. I think just one crit, actually. Yeah, we crit the Weezing. Okay. Very, very good. I don't remember if I go for... Yeah, I don't know if I remember if I go to the Seafoam before Power Plant, but we will shortly find out. Gonna grab Strength. We actually moved Repels up. Teaching Surf to Blastoise. And teaching Strength to Clefable. We're going to teach over Pound. We are going to need a few Mega Punches. We're going to mostly be using Strength now because Strength is the same power, but it can't miss. But we do need to save. We do need to use Mega Punch a little bit. And then we are indeed going to the Seafoam Islands first. I will split after I finish Power Plant. So I think I have a Repel up now. Oh no, I don't. The Repel died. There's a few things we're going to catch in here. We made party space for the Golduck. That's exactly why now I remember why we made party space for it. Because there is a trade we can do. And so it's nice to just get the Golduck in the party. And then we're going to force one more encounter. We're going to get a Golbat here. A lot of things in the Seafoam Islands we can catch later. We can catch Seal and Dugong later. We can catch Zubat later. We can catch Psyduck later. I think I actually do a water catch here as well. Yeah. I go for Horsey. Horsey's an interesting one. You can fish for it. But fishing is slower than spawning it in water, so I opt to catch it here instead of fishing. And of course we're going to Master Ball the Articuno. The legendary birds and Mewtwo have much lower catch rates than everything else, and although it is possible probably to use Great Balls to catch them, it's not something I was interested in looking at doing. So for this version of the TAS, I decided to do the Master Ball 3 times, which loses 9 seconds. So it might actually be worth it as long as I can get each one in under 3 seconds with a Great Ball, which is a lot of frames. It's like 180 frames. But it's very possible they could still not get in there, and it's a time loss overall. I'm going to go to this guy. Depending on which version you're in, if you're on Fire Red, you trade Golduck for Lickitung. In Leaf Green, you would trade a Slowbro. So if I was on Leaf Green, I would catch Slowbro in Cerulean Cave. I think it spawns instead of Golduck. And you would just do that instead. Lickitung. This trade I would actually, in RTA, my RTA route, which might change now that I found a few new interesting ideas from doing TAS. I'll actually do this trade in the post-game after beating the Elite Four. But it's definitely worth it to do it here. Okay, so I'm doing this now as well. I think I normally do this earlier. I go to Lavender. I have to pick up the Super Rod. I actually end up surfing there. There's a lot of spinners. It's really annoying to dodge them. Nice bonk. Didn't realize that. Super Rod's going to be needed to catch a few things which are impossible to catch otherwise. There's also one thing that I'm looking into doing, and that's picking up the return TM. So Clefable right now has max friendship, so its return will be 102 base power stab move. And that could be a really useful move to have for later on in the run. It has 20 PP, really strong move, and it might be worth it. That's something I'm looking into. And now we're off to the power plant. Lots of things to catch here. Pikachu. There are 3 more things to catch, plus Zapdos here. Magneton. That apparently was a very difficult one to find the frame that catches, as you can see by the delay. So the way I'm forcing certain mons to spawn here is when I'm clearing that it was placed in box 2, I delay that input a little bit. So this part I think is suboptimal. I go out of my way a little bit because I want to catch this static electrode. The reason why it's suboptimal is it's more tiles I have to walk on, which generates the greater chance to trigger an encounter. And I can catch Electrode in Cerulean Cave. So I actually have to use Repel, because I will get extra encounters. And it's faster to go in the menu than it is to take a bunch of extra encounters, unfortunately. But if you didn't have to go for that Electrode, you might be able to make it to Zapdos. But it still seems like it might not be possible. And that's catch number 60. So if this was Elite Four Round 2, although Elite Four Round 2 in this ROM hack, you don't actually need to catch 60 mons. There's no catch requirement, which is kind of unfortunate. But if this was vanilla, I would be... Oh, I guess I split. I would be able to not... I would not need to catch anything else. Alright, so we got a few things to do here in Pewter. Gotta pick up the Old Amber. Okay, never mind. We don't actually use the Abra to teleport. We're just gonna do the trade. And then the final thing we're going to do is catch Diglett and Dugtrio. Alright, on to Pallet Town. This is another pretty hefty catch section. Gonna catch Tangela here. Tangela is a guaranteed spawn in this grass. I wish it was that case in Let's Go. And then we're going to catch a Tentacool. I believe I also repel here as well, because there's just way too many water tiles and nothing else spawns here other than Tentacool. Alright, mansion. So we do need to catch a few things in here, but having the repel up is actually quite nice because we keep the repel up for most of it and we have just enough steps to end up getting everything we need later. So we're going to catch Coughing, Wheezing, Ditto, Raticate, and that's it, I think. We could catch Grimer, but Grimer, we have to come back for the Leaf Green exclusives. Well, the Leaf Green exclusive, yeah, I guess there's two exclusive. There's Muck and Vulpix, so we get the Grimer later. Oh, and Growlithe as well. That's another one we need here. Oh, and Ditto, yeah. Ditto we actually need to catch here. We can't catch it in Cerulean Cave, but we do need to do the breeding before we go to Cerulean Cave. So it's a required catch for the run here. I'll just mark that as planned. Oh, I also find it kind of an interesting fact. I do try when I can to avoid Intimidate on the things I'm catching, so that's a perfect example there with Growlithe. I do that for our... I don't know if I end up getting it for Arbok, but I do get it for Ekans later, for sure. Okay. Blaine. I don't remember what happens here. I think I strength first two, and then I need crits on the remaining two, or maybe it's a range on Rapidash, I don't remember. Let's see if I wrote this down. I think that's a crit. Oh, it's not. I think it's just a range. Yeah, the Rapidash is a 6 and 16. Oh, I forgot to split. Alright, so now it's on to Sevi Islands. A little bit of a required plot here, but we are going to be catching a few things on 3 Island. We don't need to go up to... In RTA, we might go to the area north of 2 Island Town. There's a rare candy up there, which is nice. There's also a few things in the grass, but we just end up catching everything we need in other areas, so it's not worth it. Because there's no exclusives in that route. Trying to see if there's any ranges of note on the next fight. The Wheezing is Mega Punch range 11 and 16, and then Muck is guaranteed. Mega Punch or Strength. Alright, so now we're going to catch more stuff. So one thing I'm considering for the next version of the TAS is actually to delay duping until Sevi Islands. And that would, well, actually I think I ruled that out, but one thing I was considering at the very least is actually using that double battle that's just to my right here to set up the mill glitch. They have 2 Clefairies with no damaging moves, so that would be a very interesting fight, because they have Metronome. So you could really do some weird stuff with Metronome. Force the Oranberry to proc, etc. So that would be pretty cool, but... Take a few extra tiles in the grass there just to force a Persian. We can get Persian later, but we're not going to be going through enough tiles of grass to get everything, so we have to force a few extra tiles. You'll notice if I'm on the bike, I'm not turn framing. The bike moves so fast that it's faster to just take actual steps versus turn frames. So if you do a turn frame you can only turn every 8 frames, and the bike moves at 4 frames per tile. Yeah. So it's faster to just ride the bike. You'll see I dodged a bit of extra grass. There are too many grass tiles for compared to pokes I need, so I do end up taking a slightly longer path to avoid some grass. I mentioned earlier that I could catch Drowsy here. You'll see I actually do something a little weird to avoid getting an extra encounter. Pidgeotto, I catch it at 37. You can catch it at 34, but that means it needs 2 candies instead of 1. So it's optimal just to wait for level 37. That's one of the very few things we catch in the run that is a single candy Evo. I think that's it for catches here. You can catch Drowsy, obviously, we already caught it. Venomoth we already have, it's in Safari Zone, and Hypno we're going to get a forced encounter with 1 later, so no point in getting it in any other spot. And Execute also spawns here. So I'm actually going to jump in the water. This actually avoids an encounter in the grass to the right. And here's where I actually start doing some fishing. Get Seeking and Horsey here. So it actually kind of looks like I'm not saving much time on each split, but I'm actually catching more things than I would in RTA. There's a lot of Evos that wouldn't otherwise catch. In RTA, I do catch a few evolutions, but not all. Because I duplicate a certain number of Master Balls in RTA, and I decided on a certain number, and I obviously don't want to try to catch so many things that I run out of Master Balls later. Because I do need to catch like Mewtwo and stuff, so... And we also get a nice little Moonstone from Lostel's dad here, which is the final Moonstone we need. Bit of a menu here. Popping a Repel, and that is because we are going to be going to... I don't actually remember where we're going. I think we are going to end up repelling a little bit of grass prior to Route 23 before Victory Road. I think that's the play there. Split. Oh yeah, so we're going to fish. Thankfully, repelling does not prevent fishing encounters. Shelter is a Fire Red exclusive. We're going to have to come back here and catch the Leaf Green exclusives, which are like Staryu and Krabby. I think we get Shelter, and Horsey is another one we would catch here, but we already have Horsey because we caught it in the water. But I am going to catch Seadra, and I'm also going to catch Gyarados, I believe. Yes, I do get the Gyarados. Gyarados always has Intimidate, so there's nothing I can do about that. Alright, quick menu here. We're going to be using a max elixir and re-equipping the bicycle. Because we had to unequip it to use the super rod, and then we can fly to Viridian and go to the gym. The gym here is, as you'd expect, not terribly interesting. You can water pulse the Machokes, the ranges, but opt to just Mega Punch. Alright, Giovanni. Got a Water Pulse Nidoqueen, unfortunately, because it's too tanky to go for Mega Punch. I think you need to crit it. So same thing, you'd have to crit punch Nidoking as well, so just use Water Pulse. Alright. So we have 6 fights to go before the credits, which we're not going to watch anyway. We got a lot of catching to do before then, though. Alright, Viridian Rival. This is another crit central fight. Crit the Pidgeot. So this is where Return would come in clutch. You wouldn't need to crit a lot of these things. Rival does have a couple Intimidators, but a few of them you'd be able to avoid using the crit move. Gyarados Intimidate pretty much requires crits on most things from here. That was a decent wait for that one. Growlithe, I think I pulsed this one, so I don't have to worry about waiting for a critical. One thing I didn't mention with the 0 times modifier or EXP modifier is you don't gain EVs. So once that's turned on, EV gain is gone, which isn't a huge deal, but it's just an interesting side effect. So we cancel the repel there. So here we're gonna catch quite a few things. We're going to catch on the water a Psyduck. This is a required spawn on the, or not a required, a guaranteed spawn on the water. So it's worth it catching here over somewhere like Seafoam or Sevi Islands. Okay, a bit of a delay there to force a few things, like an Ekans that doesn't have Intimidate. I get those two, and then I get those two. So this area is a perfect example of why you would catch Mank. You would want to catch Ekans earlier, because that's one less thing you have to catch here and go out of your way to get. Although you'd have to turn frame for the Ekans anyway, so it's probably about the same amount of time. Okay, a bit of a wait for this one. It's for the airblock. I guess it doesn't have Intimidate. No, it does not. Good. That actually was something that took a little while to find. I'm not sure whether that wait was worth it. I didn't time how long Intimidate takes, but... And now, I don't know why I did it this way. Oh, I saved it. Oh, yeah, no, this makes sense. I could have caught the Poliwag and stuff first, but... because I have to run around the grass to find extra things, it makes sense to just save and quit. So I will be switching the game back to Leaf Green. I will now be on Leaf Green for the remainder of the run. And I will be catching a couple exclusives. Sandshrew. And Sandslash. I think Sandslash I might get in Victory Road. So I think I just get Sandshrew here, and then I go get Poliwag. So yeah, I put on a Repel because there's way too many tiles in Victory Road, and I don't need that many things, so it makes sense to Repel a little bit of it. So here I need to catch 2 Poliwhirl and a Poliwag. Poliwag and Poliwhirl individually to get the Dex entry, and then I need to trade one of the Poliwhirls for Jinx, and I will be evolving the second one. So that's why I do it that way. So the only mon I catch multiple of in the run. I guess other than breeding Eevees, but that doesn't really count. Platforming is pretty cool in here because it's pretty tight bike movement with a really fast bike. Dropping the Repel now, so we're going to start catching things again. Machoke. What else is there to catch in here? Machop, Onyx, Marowak, I believe, are left. Geodude, I think I get as well. In RTA, I would potentially catch Cubone or Marowak on 7 Island, I think. But that's a large detour you do not need. You just go for like the 10% encounter in Tower and 5% Marowak here. Oh, it's Zubat. I catch Zubat as well. That should be the last one. I took one extra encounter, a couple extra tiles there to force the Machop. I forgot about the Machop. Oh yeah, I guess I re-equipped the bike, because when I used the Super Rod to catch Poliwag, I did get off the bike, and I just stayed on the bike the whole time. So it's kind of nice to just get that bike re-equipped right away. Because I have to get back on here, on the bike, in this section after falling down the hole. Okay, so I actually lied. I do pick up one more Max Elixir. So I actually realized when I was partway through the Elite Four that I actually need 11 uses of Metronome. And I only have 10 PP on Metronome. So getting the Max Elixir is the play. If I had Return, I would actually not need the Max Elixir at all. Alright, here's where the fun truly begins. Dugong, Strength Crit, 13 and 16 range. Cloyster, Metronome. You can't crit, so we have to... And then the help menu is to actually force to tailor which move Metronome you get. For Cloyster, it has Shell Armor. We can't crit it, so we have to get a move that can one-hit without critting, which is most strong special moves. Thunder Punch crit on Slowbro, and High Jump Kick on Lapras. If you watch the Fire Leaf Green and 80% TAS, the requirements for Metronome are much more strict. They aren't nearly as bad here. There's a lot more options to work with, but our moveset is significantly worse. In the Fire Leaf Green 80% TAS, he has Mega Kick, and I don't have Mega Kick here, which Mega Kick would be quite helpful. Alright, Bruno. One use of Metronome on this fight. Definitely the most straightforward to work with. I'm actually going to pop the Max Elixir on the fight. It's faster than doing it in battle. I force a Rock Tomb Miss from the Onyx, which is pretty quick. And then I go ahead and knock it out with Water Pulse. Hitmonchan, Mega Punch for Strength Crit. Hitmonlee, also a Mega Punch crit. I believe it's just barely doesn't kill without a crit. If Fable had a little bit higher attack, it would be a range. And then I Metronome on Machamp and get a Fire Blast crit. That was the quickest option that I found. And then Onyx is Water Pulse. So the really interesting thing about Metronome is that there's lots of moves that can knock things out. You want to kind of consider whether the move's super effective, whether the move crits, whether there's a status effect or a, not status, a stat changing effect. So there's a move called Psycho Boost, which is a really strong psychic move, but it drops the user's special attack. So that's a move that can kill pretty quick because you don't need to crit in a lot of situations, but the stat drop is actually pretty slow. Alright, we have to Metronome here. We have only normal moves otherwise, so we get a Crunch roll on the Gengar, and that one actually didn't require the help menu. That came up on its own, which is pretty cool. Mega Punch or Strength crit on both Golbat and Arbok. And then, of course, Gengar 2 is way too strong. We force a Hypnosis Miss, so double help menu for Hypnosis Miss and for Surf crit. Really, really slow, but that's one of the few mons that outspeeds Clefable. And then we can Water Pulse crit the Haunter, and that is a 50-50, I believe. Yes. Okay, Lance. 2 Metronomes here, and 3 crits. And 1 mon that outspeeds. Metronome Mega Kick. A nice stab move with a crit to work through that Intimidate. Aerodactyl is faster, it always is going to get hit, so we just want to avoid the Omni Boost or a crit from him, and then get the Water Pulse crit on him. Dragonite is also Metronome. What did I get here? Oh, Mega Kick again. It's pretty vanilla, but it works. I redid these fights quite a few times, so I got some pretty interesting outcomes from Metronome. It was pretty cool to play around with. And we have to crit both Dragonairs because of the Intimidate. Okay, the champ. 3 uses of Metronome. First up is Pidgeot. Yeah, I got Blizzard, no help menu needed. The help menu is really only useful if you want to get it to crit or hit. In that case, I got the hit for the Blizzard, so it worked perfectly. Alakazam is faster, and I purposely get a special defense drop here. You'll see why later. Strength crit to finish it off. Rhydon, Water Pulse. The only thing that we do not crit or Metronome. Gyarados is in Metronome as well. What did I get here? Zap Cannon! And also it hit. That was perfect. No help menu. Arcanine, we can actually crit with a Water Pulse. That is faster than Metronome, despite having 2 extra text boxes. And Venusaur, we get a classic one-hit KO move. Now that is very interesting that I lost time to PB despite metronoming. I know I got the max elixir. That was the main difference. But yeah, that is it for Metronome. Hope you... Actually, no, there's one more Metronome in post-game. I lied. We get to see it one last time. But that is E4 round 1 in about 2 hours and 20 minutes with 95 catches. Not too bad. Alright, the post-game is really, really interesting. we have to do quite a few things here. We have to go back to Sevi Islands. There's a Cinnabar Island. We have to go to the mansion and catch leaf green exclusives. We have to fish for leaf green exclusives. And then we also have to revive the fossils. And then, of course, evolve everything. But the biggest thing is in Sevi Islands, we have to do breeding, which is very, very slow. But I've, at least for the seed that I used, I optimized that pretty good. To truly optimize this fully would be a pain in the butt. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay. So now in Sevi Islands, we're sent on a quest by Celio to grab the ruby and the sapphire. Okay, Kindle Road. Gonna catch Ponyta here. Oh yeah, this section was probably one of the most annoying things to try and catch in the entire run. Catch Firo. We could have caught Firo earlier, but the only other place you can catch it the only other place you can catch it is like Route 23, and we're already catching a lot of stuff there with very minimal grass encounters, so it makes sense to save it for Sevi Islands. That was a really delayed... Yeah, because of Rapidash, that makes sense. Nice little dodge of that trainer and dodge of the two runners. No slowdowns or anything like that required. So we're going to head in here. This fella is going to give us Rock Smash. We do need to use Rock Smash to get through Mount Ember. And you'll see I'm going to be taking a lot of extra steps here to force a Tentacruel to spawn. This water just doesn't generate encounters, apparently. Pop a Repel and teach Rock Smash to Blastoise. Blastoise will be our HM Mule. Yeah, I don't know why I hopped back to the left and then back to the right. That was a very interesting choice of movement. The reason why I'm repelling is this next area only generates Machop and Geodude, and I've already caught them, so it doesn't make sense to not repel, because I would just get extra encounters I don't need. These two fights are very boring. Just the goal here is just to avoid critical hits. PP management doesn't matter too much in this section. We have plenty of PP to work with, so we don't need to worry too much. The key here is just avoid crits, avoid super effective text. It's pretty straightforward. There are a few things we're going to need to crit though, in the warehouse specifically, but we'll get there. This section looks pretty cool, but in TAS, some pretty tight platforming here. Okay, I don't have a split for the ruby. Alright. So now our repel should wear out very shortly. There's one very important catch here that doesn't spawn anywhere else, and it was pretty fun playing with this spinner, avoiding her movement. So we're going to catch a Magmar. That's number 100. So now we are going to be catching the only thing that spawns via Rock Smash. Now, one thing I learned a lot about how Rock Smash works while working on this part of the TAS. When you enter an area, that whichever frame you enter the area in, that determines which of the rocks in that area generate a Rock Smash encounter. So whether a rock generates encounter is not when I interact with it or use Rock Smash, it's when I enter the area. So I actually have to leave, come back, and obviously this could be improved. I break this rock, don't get anything, then I go to this rock and break it to get Graveler. How am I going to improve this for a future run? What I'm going to do in the future run is I'm actually going to candy Geodude. So I'm not even going to worry about this. And it should be okay because you'll see later I don't have enough candies. But I will not be candying Abra. I'll be catching Kadabra. So the candy usage doesn't matter too much. And this area doesn't really have anything useful. I've caught everything here already. So now on the summit of Mount Ember, we're going to catch Moltres. Okay, so now we turn in the ruby. So I think the next section is the breeding section, which is tedious part of the run, round 2. So a little bit of party management. We're going to dump everything except the Eevee. We're going to grab Hitmonchan. We're going to grab Ditto. And we're also going to grab Magmar, which is an interesting choice, but it'll make sense very soon. And then we're going to leave. We're going to head on over to Four Island. Four Island looks different here. There's actually the cable car, the Hoenn cable car, which is actually makes navigating this island extremely annoying. And one thing I realized, this is the latest version of the ROM. The game sometimes freezes when you enter the town, exiting this guardhouse. You can soft lock right here. So that's what happened there. So I use that. So, but if I menu, I get out of the soft lock. So it's actually not a true soft lock. I can still menu. But if I don't have a flyer, actually, I guess if I can't menu or anything here, or do anything in the menu, then maybe I'm stuck. I actually haven't figured out. I know evolving something clears the soft lock. I get an egg from the daycare man. That's going to be the Bulbasaur egg. And then we're going to go into the daycare. We're going to drop off our most recently evolved Flareon as well as Ditto. And then we're going to go out and we're going to do some laps around the town. So the reason for this is we want to see if we generate an egg. How we know we're going to get an egg from Flareon and Ditto is that the Daycare Man's hand is going to shoot up. It's very subtle. In fact, it's weird. Older versions of the hack, the Daycare Man would actually take a step forward, but for some reason in the latest version of the hack, he doesn't. He just raises his hand, but it is noticeable. You'll see I'm also kind of switching between taking laps around the town and going back and forth up top. The reason for that is to avoid that very same soft lock, which is quite irritating. But as long as we keep moving, it doesn't matter too much. So now I guess I can explain. Oh, there he is. So his hand shot up there. So now we have an Eevee egg. We're going to have to get 2 Eevee eggs. So now I can kind of talk about why Magmar's in the party. So I think starting in Pokemon Emerald, and that feature was ported over to this game. If you have a Pokemon with Flame Body in the party, eggs will effectively hatch twice as quickly. So the way hatching works is Pokemon that have a hatch time, and it's based on a number of cycles. Each cycle is 255 or 256 steps. I can't remember which. So pretty much every time you walk or bike 256 steps, we'll say 256 steps for simplicity. Every time you bike 256 steps, the game will check how many cycles are left in the hatch time, and if it'll drop it by 1. If a Magmar is in the party, or Magcargo, I think Magma Armor can do it as well. I'm not sure though. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just Flame Body. It takes 2 cycles off instead of 1, which means that effectively it's half plus 1 cycles with Flame Body in the party. So the way I did this is I did as many cycles as possible in the doing laps here, and I had to actually do a couple iterations of the next sections of the run as a result, so it was a little tedious. Leaving enough cycles so that all the eggs will hatch as I go about the remainder of the run. So Icefall Cave, Rocket Warehouse, that sort of thing. And I think I got it lined up pretty good, so I'm pretty happy about how it turned out. But obviously it's RNG as to when these eggs are generated and in the daycare. I get these eggs fairly quickly. Now, the key thing here is that this Tyrogue, we need it to have a specific nature and IVs such that its attack will be higher than its defense when it hits level 20. In RTA, I would dupe proteins in order to work around that. But some natures, for example, the bold nature, for example, you cannot get Hitmonlee off of that. It's impossible, because you can only give maximum 10 vitamins of each type. So even if I gave 10 proteins, you still would not be able to get the attack high enough. Maybe if it was like 0 IV defense and 31 IV attack, that might be fine, but I just assume worst case scenario for all of these. But luckily, since it's TAS, I can figure out, based on when I give the daycare lady my Ditto, my Hitmonchan, a different spread will be generated on the egg. And this Tyrogue that I'm about to get is an adamant nature, and it has enough attack such that it will be able to evolve into Hitmonlee without any proteins. So that worked out fairly well. I had to take a couple attempts at it, but it worked out. So this is obviously not as exciting. It's a much faster section than the duping, though. There is a run you can do with this game, which is catch 'em all, which you catch all the Johto and Hoenn mons that are available in the game. That is an extremely long run because you have to do a lot more breeding. You have to dupe a lot more items, and there's also a battle tower requirement you have to clear, which RTA would be extremely difficult to do, and I don't think I'm gonna ever take an attempt at it because it's just way too complicated. That would be a very interesting task. Who knows whether I'll look at doing that. It sounds like a lot of work. If I'm really, really bored and I'm stuck at home for an extended period of time, then maybe. But it's definitely not high up on my list. But this post-game section would be extremely long otherwise. Alright, well, I don't know how much longer this is going to take. But I think once I've found the sweet spot in terms of steps, I end up going into the daycare to do a little bit of party management again. And then I leave Hitmonchan and Ditto in the daycare forever. They never leave. And this is another section of the task that cloning was very helpful in terms of repeating the same set of inputs over and over again. So just copying and pasting this lap over and over and over again until I was satisfied. Oh, there we go. Finally. I was about to call it a day and walk away for a second there. Okay, so we're going to be evolving our Bulbasaur here. I forgot to mark it. Bulbasaur also has an egg move that has, like, Curse or something. Which is very interesting. Hi Carissa, welcome in. We're showing a tool-assisted speedrun today that I just made. I will say it is nice to do less candying in TAS compared to RTA. That was definitely the most tedious things about running this RTA. In case you're wondering, I do have splits on the screen. The splits are for my RTA run, which I did myself. The run that I'm showing here is done by a computer, or it was done by me via a computer. So it is going to be considerably faster. It doesn't look that much faster yet, but it looks like the time save has been kind of stagnant for the last few splits, but it's going to definitely pick up here. Because in RTA, I actually waited for all the eggs to hatch before leaving. And here I'm actually going to leave a few egg cycles still on the table. So here I actually put Alakazam in the party. And not Farfetch'd. And I believe it's actually faster to do that, because we are going to have to party manage again later, and I'll grab Farfetch'd then. But teleporting is significantly faster than what the alternative is. Okay, Icefall Cave. A couple things to catch here. Seal. Yeah, encounters here are actually pretty hard to get, so it is nice to have most of the things that you can catch here already. So in this little section area here, I'm going to be forcing an encounter, taking a few extra steps to get Dugong. This fight's pretty straightforward. I think it's just Water Pulse everything, and the Golbat is a 12 and 16, I believe. So not much to see here. The interesting fights, the slightly more interesting fights are going to happen in the warehouse. So here we're going to dig out, and then we're going to teleport. The reason why this is actually, I'm going to repel as well. The reason why this is faster than flying is you can't fly back to one island. So you have to go back down the cable car and then go on the boat and then take the boat back to one island. And so teleporting is significantly faster than doing that. And it's actually faster to do that and run in and grab Farfetch'd than to do... So it's faster to teleport and then do an extra box to grab Farfetch'd than it is to fly or to go down the cable car and fly and take the boat. And I just find that really funny. I don't know what the time save is. I'm definitely gonna note that down. All right, we're gonna get a poke that's not on my tracker. So this is not part of the 150, but it is a required thing to get in order to get Hitmonlee. That's a pretty fun spinner pass there. Oh, I forgot to split for Icefall Cave. Whoops. But as you can see, I am now extremely ahead of RTA. That's actually an interesting music glitch there. You get on the bike, but the bike music doesn't play until you grab the sapphire. I find that kind of funny. Now we're gonna head off to the warehouse because we have the passwords and we know where the sapphire is. And in all these areas, all the Pokemon in the grass are either like Johto, or they're Johtomons, or they're things we already have. So we just repel here. Ignore everything in the grass. All right, if you missed critical hits, this is an area where you'll see a lot more of them. Wheezing requires a Water Pulse crit. There's quite a big level spike here compared to the other fights in Sevi Islands. All right, there's egg number 2. Nice little spinner dodge there. And one more spinner to pass here. Alright, these Hypnos are damage ranges. My notes say 1 in 16, but I think it's a little bit higher than that. But I can avoid critical hits on them. Alright. Rocket admin number 1. We have to crit everything here. Muck is a 14 and 16. And then everything else is just a standard crit. Okay, two crits on this next fight, and one last metronome. I can't remember what move I got here. Probably Fire Blast or something, I would guess. So crit the Golbat. Oh, Sacred Fire. The Sacred Fire crit, that just happened to be the fastest thing. I don't know if Fire Blast would have knocked it out without a crit, but Psychic would have, but super effective text is the same as crit text, pretty much, so wouldn't have mattered either way. Okay, so this fight we need to crit one thing. That is the Magneton. And that is our last trainer battle of the run. I think I'll split when I fly away. Or actually when I leave. That sounds like a good idea. So yeah, we're now an hour and 11 minutes ahead of RTA. Not bad. Okay, so I'm going to clean up a few extra catches that we missed earlier. So we're going to go to 3 Island. We're going to catch three Pokemon here, including Bellsprout. Fun fact, I actually ended up rerouting the end game because I found a much more optimal way of doing things. I actually found a shiny Bellsprout here. Unfortunately, because I rewrote that section of the TAS, shiny Bellsprout is no more. but it was kind of fun. A fun little thing to find. Shiny odds are really low, so it's pretty cool to see that. We're going to get Slowpoke here. And finally, Weepinbell. And then we could have flown back to one island, but we're gonna actually take some extra steps and bike down here to grab the dome fossil. This is This is specifically an exclusive for this ROM hack. And now I'm actually gonna take a few extra steps. This could have been done on 4 Island, but it's fine. We have to do it regardless, so we might as well do it here since we're here. And now, instead of taking the boat, I'm actually going to fly, because it is faster to do that. Okay, there's 2 more areas to go to now. We're going to go to Cinnabar Island. We have quite a few things to do here. First up, Mansion. Gonna get a couple leaf green exclusives in here. And then Muck. Little optimization there. I did my turn frames going up and down, and now I don't have to turn frame to leave because I get the Grimer encountered while facing down. So I leave, we go back here. This next little fishing section, I actually have to break it into two sections. I have to catch Staryu here. This is the part of the run where I definitely could optimize, or I do a couple things which could definitely be optimized. And that's all I catch there. Next up is resurrecting the fossils, and I force the guy to walk to me to save a little bit of movement. And my last Eevee hatches. Which is perfect timing because there is a PC in this room and I will be doing my final candies here and stone evos here. So I actually ended up taking a few extra steps that I needed, but that's okay. It worked out pretty well. Probably only going to amount to a couple of seconds of time loss. I have these 3, I did not count them. So coming up here, we're going to be doing a lot of PC, moving around the PC, and this is going to be a pretty cool thing to watch, I think. I don't know if it's optimal. There may be a few little tricks that I didn't know about, but it's going to look really smooth and fast. And now we are going to evolve Tyrogue. You don't see its stats as it levels up, but its attack will be higher than its defense. So, interesting sort of tidbit here. I'm going to lose time to RTA, and that's because I do this final candying and using stones section on the next split, on the Diploma split. So I'm going to gain a ton of time back on the next split. So much so, I'm actually just going to skip ahead to the next split, so it doesn't look silly. Alright, so this next candying section was really interesting. So I have Pokemon in 4 boxes, about 5 to 6 in each one. So it actually works out really well that I don't have to change boxes that much. So there's 5 in the first box. But anyway, I'm going to let the TAS run for the next few minutes. Just take a little break. There's not much to discuss here, but pretty much the gist of what I'm doing here is I'm just going to do 5 trips to the PC. 3 of the boxes have 5 to 6 mons, and the last box has 4. And so I will be pulling things out and doing my thing on all of them. So rare candies on a bunch of things, evolution stones on a few things, and then the trade evolutions are left. I'll use the link bracelet. So I will step away and I'll be back momentarily. Okay. We are now on the final evolution of the run. Oh, technically not. There's still one more thing we're going to evolve, but last in this section. So now we're going to go back in the box one last time. Grab Fable. Keep the Poliwhirl in the party because we're using the game of trade, and then we're going to grab Blastoise and Farfetch'd because they use HMs, and then we're going to leave. You might have noticed we have 26 rare candies left, I think. We need 31 for Charmander, so there's something I'm going to have to do that's not optimal. Without having to redo the entire TAS. So obviously this will be corrected in a future run. We're actually going to grab the Charmander first. If we fished here first... I guess we could have done is we could have caught Krabby on Cinnabar Island and then did all the menuing, grabbed Charmander, or fished for... Because fishing for Kingler and then going for Charmander is faster than vice versa, I believe. But we're going to grab Kingler here. I thought initially that Kingler spawned on Cinnabar. It does not. So I'm going to have to take a look at... This is not optimal. I want to avoid fishing here. So I want to find a better place to get Kingler. Ideally in a place that also I can fish. Which I don't know if that's possible. Cool. I'll see what I can figure out. Okay, we're down to our last 5 dex entries. Very exciting stuff. Equip the bicycle. Fly to Cerulean. Doing this trade now is really good. The Jinx is holding a male, and in order to box it, you have to take the male off, and that's extra inputs. So it makes more sense to do Cerulean Cave last. In RTA, you do Cerulean Cave, and then do the boxes. In fact, you do Cerulean Cave, and then you buy the Leaf Green exclusive Game Corner Mons. Which you actually split the Game Corner Mons. You buy a couple of them in Fire Red and a couple of them in Leaf Green. You would buy Pinsir and Scyther in Leaf Green and Fire Red respectively. You'd buy Dratini. I don't remember which version you buy Dratini in. And then Porygon you'd buy in Leaf Green. So this is the unfortunate side effect of not having enough candies. What I have to do is I have to get experience on Charmander from a wild in Cerulean Cave. In order to do that, I have to do a soft reset to turn the EXP modifier back on, so I can get experience on Charmander from wild encounters. So that is a disgusting amount of time loss, and that I was kind of annoyed, but at this point with the run almost over, I was like, you know what, let's just take the L here, and next version we'll fix it and make it better. The repels are set up very specifically here so that they run out exactly where the water is before Mewtwo. That is where I will be catching my final doing my final catch. But I do get an encounter here because I am level 65. So what I do here is, to deal with this, is I swap into Charmander. Kadabra uses a non-attacking move, which is Psychic. You don't want to see Psychic there. Switch back to Clefable. And then knock out the Kadabra with Clefable. And so as you can see, level ups are very slow in battle. And this is the main reason why we candy and don't swap train. Because swap training... Actually, I guess swap training, you don't have to dupe candy at least. So I think it's faster. The level up itself is slower, but you don't have to duplicate a candy. So there may be some universe where you do some swap training in battle to level up some mons instead of using candies. And we're going to catch Slowbro, which is our final catch. Well, no. Final Great Ball catch. We still have Mewtwo, which I'm not catching with the Great Ball. Even though I have a Great Ball left, I will be using the Master Ball. And so with that extra experience on Charmander from the Kadabra, the Charmander is actually gained an extra level, so I will have 1 extra candy at the end of the run. But Kadabra's the best thing here. The other thing you can see is Ditto, and Ditto doesn't give you very much experience, so it's not worth it to go for Ditto. But you'd also have to deal with the transform animation, which would be really silly. One thing I'm also going to explore is candying Clefable to 68. The benefit of that is I avoid encounters in here with Repel Up. And I probably get some improved ranges and maybe skip some metronomes. So there's going to be a lot of sort of calcing and timing things out to see if it's worth it. Because 3 extra candies is like an extra 21 seconds in dupes and candy uses. But if I can save a bunch of metronomes just from doing that, that's pretty huge. Because maybe that means I don't go for return. Because return is another option to save metronome usages as well, but that also takes time. But anyway, that's number 150. The run's not quite over. We're going to have to do one last quick thing. We have to go to Celadon, to the Celadon condominiums, and grab the diploma. The timing, I think it stops when the diploma's first frame, the diploma's fully visible and loaded on screen. GG! But yeah, that's it. That is version 1. Thanks, Spider. That's version 1 of this TAS. As you can see, I lost quite a bit of time in the post-game due to messing up candies and fishing, weird fishing stuff, but and there's definitely some interesting time save I can get, maybe by avoiding metronome, figuring out a few ways to avoid metronome usages, because metronome is very slow. So I imagine I can maybe knock a couple minutes off of this. We will see how things go. That's going to be something I'll work on. a little bit more, but I definitely need to take a little break from this. This has been I've pretty much been working nonstop on this for like 2 weeks, whenever I got a chance. So, not bad for a run as complex as it is to finish in that short amount of time, but it is only 3.5 hours to be fair, despite there being a lot in there.